As we fast approach the end of 2019, if you want to blow your mind or somebody else's, just point out we're nearly a fifth through the next century of the new millennium. Wow! Any case, well, let's update those IRA rules for the IRA accounts. Yes, that's an individual retirement arrangement account, and they're not too different from 2019 going into 2020. For 2019, the rules still apply if you open and put in the cash by filing date of April, whatever it is for you, in 2020. The 2019 rules were a bit different from 2018 in that you got to put in an extra $500, bumping it up now to $6,000 for most folks, or $7,000 if you're over the age of 50, sometimes called the ketchup rule for those of you who don't like mayonnaise. By the way, that also now applies for the last dozen years for your spouse, whether he or she works or does not. Generally, the deductible traditional IRA, which means you get the deduction on your income tax, but then pay taxes when you withdraw the monies out, it's obligatory past the age of 70 and a half. Oh, and by the way, prohibited if you're also above the age of 70 and a half. The amounts have limits, sliding scales, and good reason to do your own taxes because there are certain provisions. If you do not have a qualified pension plan at work, it'll have a blank box for that very question on your form from your employer doing your taxes, then you generally qualify for a deductible IRA. If the box is checked yes, then they're subject to the following limits. Single, $64,000 through $74,000, and married, $103,000 through $123,000. Notice the asterisk, that non-working spouse is specifically limited to the Roth IRA rules, which we'll see below. The rules for the non-deductible Roth IRA, meaning no tax deduction going in nor coming out, and that's even if you do have a pension regardless. For single, it's at the lower end of $122,000 up to $137,000, and for a married person, that's $193,000 through $203,000. And here you also use those same limits for that non-working spouse in the case of the traditional deductible IRA. Again, this is a reminder why you should learn to do your own taxes, because better you than the tax preparer for making these decisions. Rule of thumb, max these out. Another real good rule of thumb, max out all your possibilities on your personal pension plans. You know, those 403Bs, those 401Ks, the difference being whether or not they are public or private pension plans. And here is always that graph I present whenever discussing these types of investments. If you start 10 years earlier, across 40 years, you're going to double the amount you have at the end. If you use no load, low expense ratio index mutual funds, or say ETFs, exchange traded funds, you're likely to double it again. So if you start at the age of 20, ending in 60, 40 years, that's going to double if you do that instead of starting at 30. Or if you start at 30, you go to 70 for 40 years. And that extra 10 years, believe it or not, doubles it. Doubles again using those no-load funds. Best piece of advice ever. Okay, here are the 2020 rules for IRA accounts. Not much of a change. Same dollar limits in $6,000, $7,000 if you're over 50. For single people, for the traditional deductible IRA, they've increased by $1,000. For the married traditional deductible IRAs, they've increased by $2,000, both the upper and lower limits. For the Roth non-deductible IRA, for the single person, they've increased again by $2,000. And for the married person under a non-deductible IRA, they've increased for $3,000. And again, that includes the rule for non-working spouses in the case of a traditional IRA. By the way, these limits are sliding scale between the two extremes. Below, fully qualified, above, excluded, and in between they have a little worksheet where you get a sliding scale partial computation. Now, the proverbial question at this point is always, which should I take, the traditional deductible IRA or the Roth non-deductible IRA? And notwithstanding some of those self-appointed gurus you might see even on PBS, it is not always better to go tax-free. Case in point, if you move to a state that has no income tax and or are in a state of a lower income tax than at the beginning, you're actually better off with a traditional deductible IRA. And vice versa. If you move to states that have a higher income tax and or have a state of being in a higher tax bracket, then the Roth is better. And to be fair, regardless of whether you're in a state that has a high, low, or no income tax, you will be setting aside anywhere from 50% more to about a quarter or more when you do use a Roth. And by the way, I thought I'd also present the states that do and do not tax Social Security.